Alright, hello, and welcome to the final live stream I'll be doing for the Then It Was Dark Kickstarter. Then It Was Dark is on its last hours on Kickstarter, and you can find the link to it in the description of this video. And I'm just going to take 1 minute to do something that I can't show you because I have to share my whole screen, as I mentioned in previous live streams. So I'm just going to share the link on my Facebook, but I don't think my friends on Facebook would appreciate me showing their statuses to the entire, well, whatever portion of the internet is watching this, but you know. So just give me 1 minute. And done. Alright. Hello. Well, last 2 times I was still kind of getting my sea legs with live streaming, and hopefully now I've started to figure out how to do it. And I don't think anyone's here yet, so as I have in the past, I will just start doodling. Oh, and we are officially funded, so yay on that. We're working on our first stretch goal right now, and if that stretch goal is hit, everyone gets a ready for printing PDF of this image that I did. It also makes a nice wallpaper, as you can see. So I think that's pretty cool. And everyone gets paid more, all the artists, which is a good thing. So, if anyone has any questions... Oh! Hold on. Need to remember to mute that all the time. I refresh. Anyway, as I was saying, if anyone has any questions or comments, anything they want me to talk about or anything they want me to draw, just let me know. Until then, I'm just going to start doodling. So, I think I'll fall back. Oh, I think I'll fall back on my standards unless anyone tells me otherwise. I apologize, by the way, if my energy levels are a little low. It's always a kind of exhausting process running a Kickstarter, and now that it's getting to the very final lap, I'm feeling my energy levels lull a little bit. But I've got some coffee, so I should be fine. So, these last couple of live streams, I think I've mentioned Hannibal in both of them, and as anyone who watches the show knows, the season finale was yesterday, and I'm not going to say anything about it because I will say this about it. When a show completely denies you what you wanted, and it denies you what you wanted for the best reasons, sometimes you end up feeling unsatisfied because of bad writing, but then sometimes you end up feeling unsatisfied because of very, very good writing. That's kind of awesome, even if it hurts a little. Boop. Shut up. So, that's my take on the Hannibal season finale, and I think that kind of sums up my feelings very well. I enjoyed it very much. It also kind of made me scream a little bit, but in a very good way. I have more complicated thoughts on it, but, you know, again, I have no idea if anyone watching or anyone who will be watching watches Hannibal, has a tolerance for gore, or doesn't want spoilers or whatever. I will say that I am going to have a lot of trouble waiting an entire year for another season. But I think we all are. So I'm not sure how long this one will run. It'll kind of depend on whether there seems to be interest. If it's runs about the same as the last one did, it'll probably only be an hour long. But if not, if people want me to go later, I may. But if it's just kind of quiet, then I think I'll do one last little 1 hour live stream and then retire for the evening, or at least retire from YouTube. I've still got some work to do. But I kind of like doing these. And as anyone who saw my last live stream will know, at first I did not know I had to actively refresh to see the comments. I thought they would just load automatically. I think that's because I don't know, I feel like I've watched other people's live streams and seen them load automatically to a viewer, but I guess that's not necessarily the same as when you're actually the one who is streaming. I'm getting the hang of this, slowly. So I'll probably be compulsively refreshing even though there's not really only one person there so far. Hello, one person. I was at first going for a very sad route with that, but I think I'll go for something a little more ridiculous with what I was drawing. And as usual, if anyone has any suggestions for what I draw, just let me know. I will be saying that a lot just because I won't always be looking at how many people are there, so if someone new joins, I will probably not notice right away. Unless they give me a sketch suggestion. I think last time I said I would get together a little music to fill up the silent moments, like this one, or I guess the one that was a second ago. So I think I'm going to do that now. I'm just going to have to play music off my phone. There are complicated reasons involving the fact that I have a laptop and the RIAA that I can't record sound off of my computer, just off of my headphones. But I can hold up my phone and put it near my headphones, and that's good enough, I think. Hopefully. So... I wonder how well you can hear that. I'll just do this for a bit.
I know that days don't come back, please believe in me. And then my eyes just turn red, far as the light can see. I'll abide her arms stretch through the years and hours, past the quiet dawning, then begin to sour. I've been wasting most of my time living for the day when life bugs we figured out how to make life stay. Loaded out my heart and crowned with eggs and seeds. Through the fallen houses, rimmed with light and heat. What about my path would haunt these new dark hours? Crushed men don't hold on when the shadows tower. I've been wasting most of my time living for the day when life was we figured out how to make life stay. I've been wasting most of my time living for the day when life bugs we figured out how to make life stay.
Down by the river, shadows moved across me, inch by inch. All that I heard was the walk between the water and the bridge. Turn to me, turn to me, turn to me, turn, drink of me. Look away, look away, look away, nevermore think of me. I heard the many voices speaking to me from the depths below. This ancient wood, scattered cool beneath the whited snow. Come to me, come to me, come to me, come and drink of tea. Turn away, turn away, turn away, nevermore think of me. Oh, hammer. Oh, well, put up his soul. Wants to see mystery. Well, the mystery of the world. Carry
As usual, I have no idea what I'm drawing. That's strange, it doesn't seem to be playing. Oh, there it went. Alright, I just got a notice that apparently I am not permitted to play any of that. So, and I was just told that this broadcast would end if I continued to play music, so that's not going to happen anymore, unfortunately. Which is a shame, because I liked that. So I will just have to keep blathering to you in order to fill the silence. You know, I've heard people play music on live streams before, but I guess it depends on who and where and what. So instead I will fill the silence with my lovely sonorous voice. Oh, here we go. Hello again, Tim Harrison. Where did the title "And Then It Was Dark" come from? How did you decide which stories will be used? How did you match up artists with each story? Well, the title, Then It Was Dark, gee, I'm not really sure where that came from. I think maybe, well, actually there is a sort of a story to that, because, originally, going with the personal paranormal experiences and just that kind of theme of, someone telling you a story that happened to them and you may or may not be skeptical about it. I was going to call it I Swear It's True at first, but there's already a comic called True Story, I Swear to God, and I felt like the title was just a little too similar, and that just made me a little bit uncomfortable. So I didn't use that, and I was trying to think of something else. I don't know exactly when the words "Then It Was Dark" popped into my head, but I think that maybe it had something to do with a mental image of Frank Booth saying "Now it's dark." Like, there's just something about that phrase that seemed kind of ambiguous and creepy. But it was kind of just a phrase that popped into my head, and it ended up sticking. So, deciding which stories would be used. There were a few different kinds of criteria. I I obviously, like, there was a certain degree of slush pile where it was just, this may have been your experience, but you don't really know how to tell it like a good story. Um, and then there were some where they got cut because they were too similar to other stories, and either the other stories were told better, or I liked the art better, or had some other reason to pick them over the other more similar stories. Um, I tried to pick a decent variety of types, like, there's some that are straightforward ghost stories, some that are a little ambiguous as to what's happening, some involve humanoid creatures, some non-humanoid creatures, some have uh, there's a couple that have non-overtly supernatural things going on. There's something with aliens, even. There's just sort of a few things that are vaguely classified as paranormal without falling into one specific category. Um, and I think I've mentioned before, they're not all scary. I mean, I'd say that overall the book has a spooky feel to it, and if there's more stories that are kind of spooky and scary than not scary, but there's a few others there to kind of break things up. There's a couple that are sort of sweet and sad. There's a couple that are kind of funny. Let's see. What else? How did I match up each artist with each story? There's only a handful. I think I'd have to go back and count, but I think there's only about 5 stories that have a writer-artist team. Well, actually, no. There's I think like 7, but 2 of them, the writer-artist team came to me fully formed. They were like, we've worked with each other before. We want to work with each other on this. Is that okay? And I was just gave them the thumbs up. Most of the stories are from solo creators, but there were some where people applied just as writers and people applied just as artists, and I matched them up. When it came to that, I think that honestly there were a lot more really good artists than there were people whose stories I wanted to use, writers whose stories I wanted to use. So there were a number of artists who were great but kind of got cut just because there was no story that was submitted just by a writer that their work really fit with. There's It's a little hard to pin down exactly what caused me to pick a certain artist for a certain writer, besides saying something really vague like, well, I looked at this person's art and it just had the right feel. Um, Wesley Sun's story. I'm familiar with his work, and he often works with his brother, and I've seen the way his brother draws. I've got a few of their comics, and I picked an artist, Simone Angelini, because on one hand, in some ways his art reminded me a little of Brad's, but in other ways it was completely different. And so I could easily picture how it would kind of fit with the tone of Wesley's story. Um, it has this it has a sense of humor to it. There's a certain grotesquerie that's almost goofy, but it's also got this edge to it, which I think suits the story. It's a little hard to put into terms that make sense if you're not looking at the art, I think. At least it is for me. Um, so I picked the stories first. I narrowed those down first, and then um, I just found artists that worked among the artists that I liked who'd submitted as solo artists. I kind of had to figure out the stories first because even though there was a lot of really awesome art submitted, the anthology wouldn't come together unless the stories all fit together, and You know, that ended up, I just ended up with more artists than I could use, which is a shame. But I guess it's a good problem to have had, you know. It probably means, well, it means there are a lot of good artists out there that are looking for work. So, I I said this in my last one, but I will reiterate it. If anyone is thinking of doing an anthology, I strongly recommend putting out an open call. And I recommend putting one out on Tumblr. I mean, use other sites too if you want, but I gotta say, there are a lot of really good artists on Tumblr. It's got a mixed reputation, but there's a lot of really good artists there, and a lot of them are looking for work. And you'll find people that you never really were aware of or never thought about. I mean, there's definitely a couple people in this anthology who I'd never encountered their work before at all. There's more than a couple, in fact. There's a number of them. Um, and I'm so excited that I found them. So, so what do you guys think of these live streams? They don't seem to be drawing in a lot of people, but I am kind of enjoying them, so I don't mind doing them even if it's just for 3 or 4 people. But I'm curious whether anyone actually wants me to do more, or because I'm probably not going to do any more for a little while anyway, either way, because as soon as the fundraising is over, I'll kind of have other things on my plate that will be keeping me pretty busy, but you know, it's something that I might theoretically do again in the future, and I'm just curious if anyone is interested or if not so much. And please be honest about that. I promise you, you won't hurt my feelings if you. You know, I suppose you probably wouldn't be here if you weren't at least a little interested, but you know what I mean. And as always, if anyone has anything they would like to see me draw, just mention it. Otherwise, I'll just draw random spooky ooky things. It's not that spooky ooky. It's kind of cutie wooty, actually. This little guy. I don't know why. Just something about the mask I think is cute. I think I'm going to have something of a theme tonight, which is really cute little kid-looking monsters encountering bad things. Whew. So, um, I know I talked a little bit about horror comedy in one of these live streams. Horror comedy to me is one of those little subgenres that it's kind of my pet subgenre. I think a lot of us have a pet subgenre. I certainly know I do. And just horror comedy is mine because I feel like it's very hard to do effectively. Uh, but when it is done effectively, it is wonderful. And I think there's like a lot of things that are thought of, and it might be because I have a very particular definition of horror comedy too. Like, I think there are some films that I think of as straight comedy, with horror themes, like, you know, mm, Zombie Strippers. That movie is a straight comedy exploitation movie with horror themes. There's nothing in it that's supposed to be actually scary. And I use Zombie Strippers as an example because even those of you who have never seen Zombie Strippers know exactly what it is just from the title. Um, and I mean that's fine. Or a more I think a more rightly critically acclaimed example. Even though I really, really love the movie Shaun of the Dead, I don't really think of it as a horror comedy. I actually think it defined itself perfectly. It marketed itself as a rom-com, as a romantic comedy with zombies, and I think that's what it is. It's a great romantic comedy with zombies, and it's kind of a parody of zombie movies. I don't feel like there are moments that are genuinely scary, though. There are moments that are genuinely sad, that are very emotional moments. But I don't consider it personally, just my personal opinion. I don't consider it a horror comedy. It's just a really good comedy with zombies that I like a lot. Um, to me, what makes something a horror comedy is there have to be moments that are genuinely scary, or at least genuinely creepy and unnerving or disturbing, and there have to be moments that are genuinely funny. And then there have to be moments where you're not really sure if they're supposed to be scary or funny, and you're kind of unsure how to feel. And you might nervously laugh, or you might not. And it's a very, to me, a very pleasant but uncomfortable feeling. Um, I think maybe the most classic example of that to me, like certainly the first movie that I remember thinking of as a perfect example of a horror comedy is American Werewolf in London. Almost any scene where David is talking to Jack after he dies kind of falls into that because you've got this zombie who is being very, very deliberately, humorously deadpan. And sometimes it's straight funny when Jack's on screen, and then sometimes, no, it's a little too fucked up to be funny, I think. So there's that. Let's see. Oh, and I'm a big fan of Welcome to Night Vale, and I think that is a really effective horror comedy because there are moments that are genuinely creepy, there are moments that are genuinely funny, and then there are moments where you really don't know how to feel. I almost want to say Hannibal could fall into that too. There are certainly funny moments in it, and there are certainly moments where you don't know how. Maybe it is. I don't think it would consider itself a horror comedy. I don't think most people would consider it a horror comedy, really. Maybe I just have a messed up sense of humor. I don't know. These are only just my opinions, of course. I'm not a film scholar or anything. I do not claim to be. Um, I think John dies at the end maybe falls into that. I So I think this will probably just be another hour-long one. By the way, I don't know if Nora is watching, but if so, I think maybe we should use something like this to talk about horror on YouTube together sometime. I feel like this would be much more interesting with a conversation partner. Interesting for you guys, anyway. As is, I'm just pontificating to myself. So, um, matching up artists with writers, I think, was a bit of a gamble. Because I wasn't sure. A, how many people would even be interested in working with someone else, or how well they would be likely to work together. And I suppose in most cases, I still don't know, but I'm pretty confident in my artists and writers right now. And if not, I can always step in as a referee. But I'm feeling pretty confident right now. I I knew though it would. I knew there would be some people, given the theme, who would apply with an interesting story that happened to them, but they weren't necessarily someone who could, you know, draw a comic, tell a story visually. So I wanted there to be a certain degree of openness to that. And I'd also been in recently I'd been in another anthology, the Ladies' Night anthology, which it also just finished its own fundraiser and it got funded on Indiegogo. And that was something where the artists like me were paired up with writers and given a script and worked from a script, and that was a good enough experience that I kind of had a little bit more faith in the process, and also I'd been able to observe a little bit of the back and forth in there. So and besides, I've worked with writers before. I know that a lot of the artists in this project have worked with writers before, so I try to think up good questions between streams because I love hearing behind the scenes stuff about almost anything, but especially comics. Sketch idea. Bats have always been my favorite animal. How about some of them? I will gladly accept that challenge. And what is Nightfale? Oh, there's my voice again, cutting in. What is Nightfale? Nightfale is short for Welcome to Nightfale, which is a podcast put out by Commonplace Books. And I'm actually gonna get a couple references. It's a podcast put out by Commonplace Books. It actually originated, I think, strangely enough, on the Something Awful forums at first, but it's completely exploded beyond there. And it sure doesn't need me to plug it, but I kind of love it to death. It's not only is it really, really good horror comedy, but well, here's the basic premise. It's kind of framed as this series of broadcasts from a desert town where all conspiracy theories are true. So you've got sort of weird supernatural occurrences, you've got giant shadowy government organizations, you've got a current storyline involving a really, really creepy giant corporate monster. And it's just all competing conspiracy theories, really. It's very, very, very cool. And there are a few other voices on the podcast, but 90%, 99% of it is kind of read to you by the narrator of the community radio show in this town, whose name is Cecil. And he just has this incredibly charming voice and attitude, and it's actually, there's just so much to love about it. Just go listen to it at some point. You will not regret it. It's gotten very, very big on Tumblr. I've been fairly active on Tumblr lately. And I've noticed how much fan art there is of it there. And there is a lot of good fan art coming out of Welcome to Night Vale. I think partly because what makes it such a good property for fan art is because since it's a podcast, it's all audio. No one really knows what any of the characters look like beyond a few descriptive details. And there's a lot of room for interpretation about Night Vale, like, because there's so much strange supernatural stuff that happens in it. There's a million different ways people will draw Cecil, the narrator, and because there's so much strange supernatural stuff in the town, some people draw him as being in some way supernatural. Like, if you've seen any fan art of the show, you've probably seen a version of him with, like, a third eye and tentacles and stuff like that. But there's a lot of people who just draw him as a normal guy, too. And that really applies to a lot of the characters. This bat is really cute, but maybe I should be making something a little spooky-ookier. Bats are so cute, though. Like, I know they're supposed to be spooky, but they're very cute. Look at his little cheeks. Okay, I'll draw a bat that's a little spookier looking than that. And I shouldn't be drawing a fruit bat because they've got the cutest freaking faces. I think vampire bats are pretty cute too, but they at least look more kind of classically scary. You know, they got that smushed up nose face. And they do look kind of weird when they're walking. But look at those little faces. Alrighty. I've done a little bit of fan art for it too. You can see that on my Tumblr if you are interested. I've actually probably gotten more fanish. Oh, there we go. It was just catching up. I've actually probably gotten a little more fanish about Welcome to Night Vale than I have been about anything almost since, like, I was a teenager. Because although there's plenty of things that I've enjoyed, that I've watched and read and liked, I haven't done a lot of fan art or read a lot of fan fiction or anything like that in a long time, but Welcome to Night Vale. It's kind of hooked me. I am just a real sucker for good horror comedy. I think on one hand, good horror comedy is hard to do, but there's a lot of stuff that is kind of, I think, trying to be that tries to be kind of horror comedy, but often just fails at being comedy. You know, I've seen a lot of people who are kind of trying to do what Trauma already does, and what Trauma does and always will do better than anyone else. You know, Trauma knows what it is and what it's doing, and I don't know. I see a lot of films that are trying to be so bad it's good, but they only succeed in just being bad. But Welcome to Night Vale is so good it's good, in my opinion. There are some that pull it off, mind you. I'm not dissing every I'm not dissing every comedy that uses horror tropes. There are some that are really great, but I think like a bad, funny horror movie is something that a lot of people just think it will be easy to do. And in some sense, they're right in that it's easy to do, it's just not easy to do well. Then again, there are some people who think comics will be easy to do. And that is an opinion that lasts about 3 pages into their first book at most. I'm not sure if I made him scary, he just looks kind of derpy. But that'll do in terms of And just gonna periodically check back. Boop-a-doop. Boop-a-doop. I am getting near the end of an hour, though. Oh, there's a third comment. Is the release of Then It Was Dark the same one as the one listed on the backer award dates, February 2015? Yes. That is the month I expect to ship everything in. So, unless anything goes wrong, if all goes well, and if anything goes wrong, I will inform all my backers, don't worry. There was a little bit of a delay with Star Power, and I tried to keep my backers in the loop about that. And I think at this point I'm a little better at estimating, so. But you should get your books by February 2015, and at that point they will also most likely be released for a general market, so anyone who misses the Kickstarter, though, if you have, the Kickstarter is still running, so you have a chance, but if anyone misses the Kickstarter and wants a copy later, they will be available. I'll give him a little moth to eat. Oh darn, he looks too cute. Alright, I give up. I can't make a bat that doesn't charm me. Give him some more bugs. Alright, should I do one more bat? I'll do one more bat. This is an interesting old illustration. Got those cute little leaf-shaped ears. Ears are way too huge for their heads. How can that ever be anything but cute? Okay, I'll try and make him a little scruffy, spiky looking, with a lower cuddle factor. Even those noses are really cute. They're like pugs with smushed in faces. Alright. They at least have very sharp looking teeth. So they got that going for them in creepiness. because it does look like it would hurt if they bit you. That little ruff of fur that forms around them when they have their sort of shoulders punched up kind of looks like a stole. They've got big fluffy potato bodies, too. They are basically flying fuzzy potatoes. And who's a scared of potatoes? I ask you. No one is a scared of potatoes. I'm gonna try and make his wings look a little more janky and maybe a little nasty. Maybe he'll look creepier if they're a little torn up. Okay, I'll throw a bunch of scattered bodies around, and it'll just be implied that he somehow killed them all, and that'll make him look scary. I am a master of horror, you guys. Here, I'll even put in blood. See? Now he looks scary. Right? Right, guys? I give up. Bats are too cute. Alrighty. I'm gonna do one final refresh. See if there's anything else that anyone wants to say. And I'll actually... Oh. Oh, okay. I somehow missed this one. Oop. Hold on a minute, my computer's taking a minute to load. I only noticed the Dumb Ways to Die reward after pledging. Diana Knock is one of my favorite artists, so I was thrilled to see it as an option. Do you ever think you will offer those again? If you think that the Dumb Ways to Die one is Diana Knock, you are mistaken. She is involved with Then It Was Dark. She is doing backer awards. But the Dumb Ways to Die was actually drawn by me. And I am flattered that you thought it was Diana Knock. She is an excellent, excellent artist. But, yeah, I could definitely offer those again. They're kind of fun to do. I might start offering them on and off, or honestly, if you're interested, you could just contact me for a commission on that. But that's just if you're ever interested in them in the future. And let's see. Thanks for the bats. There's nothing not to like about them. Oh, well, thank you. And I am glad you're looking forward to it, and thank you, Tim, for all the comments. It helps me not be talking to myself, and I appreciate that. So I'm going to do one last shot. Lovely backer award you may be getting, because based on what you just said you already pledged, so if we hit that goal, you'll get that. And since there's actually a little bit of a catch-up with the live stream, after I said I was done, I didn't really wait to refresh, so I'll check again. He just had some punch. It's true. It's true. They all had punch. They had so much punch that they got sick and had to lie down. Look, they puked all the punch up all over themselves. Look at that. Ugh. Some people just can't hold their punch. Oop, that's not punch. There we go. It's a big bowl of punch. Well, I think we're about done. We're about ending the hour. So I think I will bring this to a close again. Thank you to everyone who watched, everyone who pledged, everyone who signal boosted the Kickstarter. We are funded, and Then It Was Dark is going to be made, and that is a very, very good feeling. So I will say thank you and good night.